My director thinks grants are the be all end all for fundraising and wants me to spend most of my time filling out grant applications. But I know that grants are hard to get, and I honestly don't have the time or inclination to go after them. What advice do you have to navigate this situation? Which is a common one. You are not alone. So, education and honesty, if, and you may have done this already, but if your director hasn't applied for grants before, if your director hasn't done your job before, they probably don't have an accurate idea of what's involved with either of those things. So, first of all, if you're in this webinar, it's usually because you are a collection worker and are a subject matter expert and a technical expert in what it is that you do, and you likely already have a very full-time job. And so to have the director or whomever put grant writing on top of the work you're already doing, that's too much work, right? And if you have never written grants before, if it's not something you've learned how to do, even if you've learned how to do it, if it's not something you enjoy, all of those reasons are good reasons for you to not be doing it. And so having an honest and informative conversation with your higher up, whoever is asking you to do it, in terms of what your time, interest, and capabilities really are. Because if you don't have the time, inclination, or background to do it successfully, then it really isn't a good decision on the director's part to still try and make you do it anyway, because you're not going to be successful and you are essentially wasting time and money, which nobody should want, including your boss. Related to that, have a conversation about what the payoff is. So do have an ROI, a return on investment calculation. And specifically, what I mean is for directors who want you to go after grants, take a look at a couple of grants that might be appropriate for you and do a bit of a mental calculation on how long it would actually take you to fill out that grant. If it is a federal grant, even some of the lighter ones, it takes easily 24 to 40 hours of work time to put those together. And that is, speaking as someone who regularly does those. And if you're new to doing those types of grants, it is going to take you 3 times as long easily. So having sort of that estimate of like, okay, director, you want me to apply for this grant? It's going to take me at least 40 hours to do that. And if the grant's only going to be for like $5,000 and not $500,000, it is not worth the ROI. So do the calculation, because sometimes the math just doesn't make sense. And to my next point, does it make sense to spend money to make money if it can be done smarter and more strategically? So, yes, if you can do it smarter and strategically, if you can be efficient about it, great, it makes sense. If you're interested in writing grants, if the grant that you and or the director want to go after makes sense and you're excited about it, if you've done grant writing before and feel confident in it, then yes, you should do those. But the fact that you asked the question the way you did makes me think that at least one of those things is not true for you. And so this might be an instance where it makes sense to hire a consultant if you don't have a grant writer on staff or on the board. Hire someone like me who has that experience, who can do the LAM expertise with the grant acquisition expertise matchup, and write that grant for you at least 3 times quicker than you could if you were new to grant writing. And sometimes that return on investment makes so much more sense to cut me a check for a modest amount on a focused project than it does for you to try and learn how to do grant writing and also try and apply for a federal grant for the first time, which I don't recommend, and then not get the grant also. As an aside, like, there's no guarantee to getting grants, of course. We can never guarantee that, but there are ways to make sure that you are set up for success, and having that expertise and having that experience is part of that requirement. And if you don't have it, if your boss doesn't have it, you need someone who does have it if you're going after grants.